Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
On March the 6th, I want to give you a word of congratulations. You made it all the way through Leviticus. Today we turn our attention to the end of Leviticus, Leviticus chapter 27. And so this chapter serves as really an appendix or an addendum to the whole book. And it's, of course, the last chapter is focused around holiness. But let me say this before we get too far. You've made it this far. Numbers is next. Numbers is going to be another challenging for us. But hopefully you've seen as we've walked through this book of Leviticus together, there are so many riches there that are left for us to uncover. And hopefully we're not afraid to go further and uncover the riches that the Lord has for us as we study the book of Numbers. But anyway, let's turn to Leviticus chapter 27 today. The key to understanding Leviticus chapter 27 comes from the last verse of Leviticus in verse 34. These are the commandments that the Lord commanded Moses for the people of Israel on Mount Sinai. Now, what else did the Lord give at Mount Sinai? Of course, the Lord gave the 10 commandments. And so right here at Leviticus chapter 27, the whole law was given at Sinai. And we have those 10 laws that were emphasized at Sinai at Exodus chapter 20. So now in Leviticus chapter 27, the book ends with a list of 10 laws. And so the content of these laws deal with a process of payments of vows that are made to the Lord. So you have, for example, listen to these 10. Number 1, you have the persons dedicated to the Lord. Number 2, animals dedicated to the Lord. Number 3, houses dedicated to the Lord. Number 4, inherited land dedicated to the Lord. Number 5, at verse 22, purchased land dedicated to the Lord. Verse 26. Number 6, prohibition of dedication of your firstborn. And then look at verse 28. We have number 7, the procedure for total devotion to the Lord. Verse 29. Number 8, the procedure for total devotion of a person to the Lord. Number 9, at verse 30, the procedure for tithes from the produce of the land. And then at verse 32, finally, number 10, the procedure for tithes from the livestock. And so here we have all of this centering as an appendix to the book or an addendum to the book. We have everything centering around and focusing on holiness. But let's turn to our reading in Mark chapter 11. And notice this specifically. At the close of Leviticus, we turn to the triumphal entry. And we shout, especially after we end Leviticus, realizing the difficulty of these laws. We declare with the rest of the group, Hosanna, blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. And this is our God who has redeemed us and called us to himself. Of course, his name is Jesus. And then what happens in verse 11? Let's turn our attention here. He entered Jerusalem, went into the temple, and when he had looked around everything as it was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. And on the following day, when they came from Bethany, he was hungry, and then he sees a fig tree in leaf, but he couldn't find anything on it. So we have a fruitless fig tree, and then in verse 15, we have a temple without prayer, and then we have a temple without the presence of the Lord. And so the fruitless fig tree becomes a parable of fruitless Israel. But look at how the Lord answers in verse 22. Have faith in God. And let's just read this verse together in verse 23. Instead of trying to explain it away, and I want to say this, as I tell you not to explain it away, let me say this. What we have before us in this prayer is not a blank check, it's not unqualified. So we know that, but let's just let the words wash over us this morning or today, whenever you're listening to this. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes what he says will come to pass, and it will be done to him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive you your trespasses. And then look at how Mark is telling the story. Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, notice what he says. They came again to Jerusalem as he was walking in the temple. The chief priests and the scribes and the elders came to him, and they said to him, "By what authority are you doing these things?" And he said to them, "I'll ask you a question." So in other words, the Pharisees, they ask, and they're not answered. And the reason that the Pharisees are not answered is because they have no faith. They are the products, they're like the fig tree. They are fruitless Israel. We can have confidence that we can not only bear fruit and please God, but when we ask things, God hears us and responds to us. And what's our basis for that confidence? It's faith in God, because we believe that He'll do it, not because of anything that we can offer Him or give to Him. Our confidence is just exactly what we have here in Psalm 61. Hear my cry, O God. Listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. Lead me to the rock, here's the key, that is higher than I. For you have been my refuge, a strong tower against the enemy. Our confidence is in a God that's higher than ourselves. His righteousness is greater than ours. His ways are more wondrous than ours. And our confidence is not in ourselves. Our confidence is in Him.